The fast rise of the right now economy. It'd be fair to say that mobile has almost become synonymous with on-demand services, and dare I say it, we're probably getting a little spoilt by it. And as a parent, I kind of worry about that, and I was talking to some of the team yesterday about our children. My daughter's 4.5, and her life suddenly changed about a week ago when we got the Google Chromecast. And what with Netflix, she now has pretty much the entire Disney back catalog to hand immediately on a tablet. And as I say, there's a slight tension there. So we were talking about Frozen, which I don't think is available via Netflix. But how many times have our children watched Frozen all the way through? I reckon my daughter's watched it probably about 7 or 8 times. I won't name names, but one of my management team admitted that their daughter had seen Frozen 32 times. Heck, it's only been out a month. Amazing. So on demand is right here, right now. So I have great pleasure introducing Venky and the panelists. Venky Ganesan from Menlo Ventures. He recently did a presentation called Right Now, really about how we're all gearing up to delivering goods and services whenever and wherever we need it. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Venky and the panelists. Please give them a big hand.
Thank you, Roger. I'm going to try to get all the panelists on. Jessica, Bastian, Manish. Can you guys hear me okay? It's actually fun to come out from Palo Alto out here to the city and see quite a few people here. I thought we'll just do a little bit of intros on each other, and then we will get into the panel. The idea of the right now economy was really sort of sometime in 2013, as my partners and I were sitting around and thinking about what's going on, and we really think about these 3 trends, mobile, cloud, and big data. We said, how do we capture what happens at the intersection of these 3 things? And that's really how our thesis around the right now economy came together. And for those of you who don't know, Menlo Ventures, we are a 38-year-old firm, have had the pleasure of backing over 400 portfolio companies. If you actually held the stock of all of these companies when they went public, it would be worth north of $170 billion. So we feel very fortunate to have worked with some great entrepreneurs. And the right now economy has been a big trend for us. It's actually particularly gratifying for me to be here because Flurry is a Menlo portfolio company, and we're lucky to have backed Jessica and Manish. Hopefully we'll have a chance to back Bastian one of these days. But it's an exciting group of guys and companies, and so we will let them introduce themselves, and then we'll start talking about what the right now economy is all about.
Manish Chandra, founder and CEO of Posmark. We're a mobile fashion marketplace, makes it super easy to buy and sell fashion. One of the interesting facts about Posmark is at any given point in time, there's more than 5 million items available for sale. So one of the largest selections of fashion online.
Hey guys, I'm Bastian. I'm one of the founders of Postmates. Postmates is an on-demand delivery service. It's a very magical experience. It allows you to purchase and have any item in your city delivered in under an hour. We're right now concentrating on restaurants. Think deliveries from restaurants that don't deliver themselves, Delfina Pizza, or anything else you can imagine. We're doing around 11,000 deliveries a week right now, and we're operating in 5 cities. The last city that we launched is Chicago. That's why I'm wearing the Cubs hat today. That's right. Oh, I'm also a Cubs fan on top of that. So.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Scorpio. I'm one of the founders of Getaround. We are a marketplace for sharing cars. If you haven't tried us out, you probably should. If you have, get excited. We basically let you rent any car you want. We have a smart car for $5 an hour, a Tesla Roadster for $25 an hour. It's all on demand. So about a year ago, we launched Instant, and now you can just rent and unlock the car from your phone and drive off. All of our cars are privately owned. We have about 200,000 members across the country. We're operating in 5 cities. And our owners make $500 to $1,000 a month just sharing their car when they're not using it. So there's a really great opportunity to put this asset to better use and to help take cars off the road.
Right. Marketplaces are very old concepts, right? They've had bazaars going back to the Middle Ages, even earlier. But now, how has mobile changed that? So tell me about what is different about a mobile-powered marketplace versus a regular marketplace?
So for us at Poshmark, I sort of first thought of the idea back in 2009, and I didn't think the platform was really ready. What mobile did in particular was brought in three things. It's an instant merchandising solution. A woman can go take a few pictures and suddenly she has merchandise available. It's an instant communication platform. People essentially communicate more like an SMS rather than email process, which helps cut down the time of transaction. And the third thing is it's a built-in customer service and fulfillment solution. So all of these three things coming together on the supply side helped. On the demand side, for us, it's like carrying an entire fashion store in your handbag. So you can open it up and essentially start shopping at any point in time, and the stuff then gets delivered to your doorstep. So it really revolutionized both the supply side and the demand side for fashion for Poshmark.
What about you, Bastian?
Yeah, it's similar for Postmates. I mean, if you think about the concept, the whole idea, I use the word magical, why it feels so magical is because it's very immediate. We use the word on demand a lot. If you place an order with Postmates, within seconds, you see the person who accepted your delivery, you can follow him on a map. So that's obviously something that makes the service feel very personal, that gives a great deal of satisfaction to the customers. So I would say that immediacy is a big thing for us. And the second one is that the entire routing, the fleet, every Postmates carries a device with him that we track, that we dispatch him deliveries to, and that wouldn't have been possible without the penetration of cell phones or even the capabilities of cell phones that we have right now.
So with Getaround, we actually do hardware and mobile and web, and so people use it on pretty much both the platforms. For us, mobile is really exciting because, in a way, your smartphone can replace your car. So for people who would normally be kind of saddled to one car, now they literally have this phone that can get them access to thousands of cars on demand. The hardware technology is a key component of the instant gratification, the fact that you can walk up to a car and unlock it with your phone and just drive off, and not to mention this is a stranger's car that you just unlocked. So the app literally shows you any car you can rent. They're usually, in the building or a couple blocks away, and basically you can see all the trips you have, and same thing for the owner. So they just see these nice people who are using their car, and they see the money coming in from each trip. So I think the mobile aspect is what makes it work. Never before has there been on-demand sharing of private vehicles, so we couldn't do it without this.
Could a web-only audience work with your apps? Would you be the same company if it was just web-only?
No, we actually didn't have a web solution fully baked out till just a couple of months back, and we've had an app for almost 2 years, so very hard.
Yeah, we still don't have a web version. We have to eat crap for that all the time, but you need an Android or you need an iPhone to use Postmates. So
you guys are truly mobile-first companies, right? Now let's think about it. When I think about mobile, 3 dimensions to it. There's, how do you acquire people? How do you engage with them? And then can you actually consummate that service right through mobile? And when you think about those 3 dimensions, can you tell me a little bit in each of your apps, how you play that? How does acquisition work? What have you learned about acquisition in the mobile world versus the web world?
So for us, let me sort of start with engagement. An average woman uses the app somewhere between 20 to 25 minutes a day and opens the app 7 to 8 times. So what mobile gives us is sort of that deep, prolonged engagement, even though each session can only be a minute or 2 minutes at a time. So you have to build it for that very quick consumption of content overall. On the acquisition side, it's actually continues to still be a lot of different challenges in terms of scaling mobile and scaling mobile acquisition. We've done paid marketing, so we've done Facebook, we've done different ad networks. We do conversion straight from the web back into the core platform. And then the biggest one, sort of the biggest driver for us, which accounts for more than half the users required, is word of mouth. There's actually very hard to ascribe a source to that thing, and we've figured out that that's sort of 2 girls talking and sort of saying, hey, download Poshmark, or work through it. And that seems to be one of the biggest viral channels, which is sort of a non-traditional viral channel for us.
yeah, I have to admit, I don't I'm not sure if I know a lot about customer acquisition. We have been fortunate enough that most of our customers or the user base has been grown organically up to this point. So
it must be all word of mouth, right? If you're not spending money, so then
no, but what we care about a lot is how can we convert somebody who launches the app, who ventures into Postmates, to get him to do his first delivery, to come back to do a second delivery, to form a habit around using the product. And I think there you have, with the cell phone as a channel, you have some unique opportunities. You can time the time of the day when you want to communicate with your customers. You can interact with them when they do specific things. There is a selection of stores that we can show you, maybe even based on your location, definitely based on the city that you're in. So that is what we spend a lot of time thinking about, rather than acquiring customers in the first place.
Similar story for us. We do get a lot of growth from referrals. Owners are incentivized to invite their friends to share their car, and other people who are happy sharing cars refer their friends. We also do paid acquisition, mostly on web currently, since we found some very successful channels there. We found mobile to be a little less cost-effective currently, so we are learning and working on that. And we actually don't have an Android app yet, so that's coming out very soon. We're really excited about that. And essentially what we focus on is getting people to have their first get-around experience. Because once, probably similar to Postmates, once you experience how magical it is, you're going to use it all the time. You'll know that that's a great transportation option for you.
Jessica, you mentioned something, which is you said you don't yet have your Android app, right? And it seems like in the beginning everybody was like, we got to go Apple first. Is that still true today? If you were starting your companies today, would you still start with an iPhone app versus going to Android right away?
I'd say ideally just get both out and do a big launch with both of them. That's not always possible, but we launched with web and iPhone 2.5 years ago. I don't know what other people would say.
I think today you could go either way. My belief is I would still focus on one platform. iPhone still has simplicity from a user development perspective and learning and iterating through it very quickly. Android is slightly more complex. Having said that, even though Android as a platform is fast catching up with the availability of apps, 12 months back, for example, Android was attractive because it had started to mature, but there weren't a whole lot of apps available. A year from today, I don't know if there'll be any strategic advantages in going one versus the other, but I would say focus on one.
So it took us a year to launch our Android app, or maybe even a bit longer. And people ask me all the time why we wouldn't speed that part up. And for us at Postmates, we always thought that just having one platform gives you like a really cool advantage, because it lets you focus on one product that you have. And I believe that a lot of founders, a lot of companies often do the mistake to go too broad, too fast. And at least in our playbook, for us, it was extremely important to stay focused. And sometimes, by just launching a new platform, you have an excuse, or you can use this new platform as an excuse. Maybe your user growth is not where you want it to be. So let's just launch Android, right? Surely that gives us tens of thousands or millions of new users. But by not doing that, you kind of force yourself to concentrate on the issues at hand. So if you go really narrow and if you go deeper into the product and understand the issues, then there is no reason to believe that you can't have millions of users on the iPhone platform alone. So I believe people jump too quick. At least in our playbook, we like to stay focused, and we like to stay focused as long as we can, and then add a second platform once we understood the product really in all its depth.
There's this feeling there's a particular persona of an iPhone user, perhaps different socioeconomic, richer on the socioeconomic, more likely to buy, more likely to consume, versus an Android user. You think that's still true? Do you think there's really that big of a difference between an iPhone and Android user?
So for us, our average order size difference between iPhone and Android, we've only been on Android for 5 months, is less than 10%. Android is less than 10% lower than the average order size for iPhone.
So let me try to explain why I think it is still true. But I think it's a game of numbers. I think if you have Android devices that are available in different price classes and that are available in different markets, then the group of people that you can activate to use your product I believe, is broader. And on the iPhone, at least for a very long time, because the device was expensive, the device has been penetrated very successfully here, very successfully in parts of the Western world, I believe it was easier to find the people that are willing to install apps, that are willing to play with them, that are willing to spend money. That is the only way that I can explain it. So I think you still see an easier activation on iOS devices and on Android devices.
So I disagree a little bit for the local businesses. I think, the Google engineer with an Android versus the Apple engineer with Apple, or, switch them, living in San Francisco, using Postmates or Getaround, they are very similar people. From a demographics perspective, from a user perspective, I think they both spend the same, probably very close to the same amount of money.
Another way to think about it is if your monetization is dependent upon taking direct money from the consumer versus integration with the store, the monetization characteristics are different. So for us, because we take the credit card directly from the consumer, we don't see that difference at all. And particularly in United States, where phone handsets are subsidized, the actual real cost to the customer is more in the carriers. And I feel like once iPhone penetrated Sprint and sort of they did the Sprint deal, we touched a lot more sort of different markets that are available. And with iPhone 4 and iPhone 5 both being available, you actually span both those same markets. But if you're dependent upon App Store, the App Store integration in Apple, as we know, is just super nice.
So we can spend the whole half an hour talking about mobile, but I want to talk a little bit about local versus national, only because we have two companies here who kind of expand on a local market-by-market basis, while Poshmark is sort of global on day one, and that changes how we work. I'm curious, for you local guys, how did you think about your first market? And then how did you think about your second market? What are the characteristics that make certain cities more attractive or less attractive for you, for the kind of service you have?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So for us, we have kind of a good comparable. Zipcar is, kind of the father of car sharing and ride sharing in a way. And they've expanded to all of the top US cities. So you really know where there's a high demand for car sharing. Car sharing is growing about 25 to 30% year over year for the past 10 years. So it is a fast growing market, but it works best in the densest cities with good transportation. So that gave us a nice focus area. For us, our number one and number two were pretty easy. We were originally in Mountain View, but moved up to San Francisco because we felt like we wanted to focus on cities. And so we launched here after launching at Disrupt in New York, but for San Francisco. And then Portland was actually our second city, but that was for a bit of a different reason. It is a very good car sharing city, but we also got a $1.7 million grant, government grant, to do a research study up there. So because car sharing has such positive impacts of taking cars off the road and reducing pollution, there was a big interest by the Department of Transportation to help us and study it. And so they had particular interest in certain cities, and so that helped us get a small city, a big city, one that's more spread out, one that's more dense, and then.
Was there anything surprising about San Francisco? I mean, I bet a lot of people here think about San Francisco as a natural first market because you're local, but are there reasons to think that you should not maybe start at San Francisco because it may not be reflective of the US market in general?
Yeah, usually in our space, people say that if you can make it in San Francisco, you can make it anywhere because it's so competitive with Zipcar, City Car Share, Uber, Lyft, Sidecar, Getaround, and 5 other competitors we've had that have not worked out. So I think it's nice to, operate where your office is, and so that just worked for us.
Anything you would add, Bastian?
Well, I mean, for Postmates, let's try to understand what Postmates wants to be, and there's 2 things. The first thing that we want to be is we want to be an infrastructure in a city that merchants can use to compete with big box retailers. That's very important for us and for our rollout strategy. We believe that there is beautiful tens of thousands of local merchants, and they don't have the proper tools to compete with Target, with Best Buy, with giant retailers. And in order to do that, at Postmates, we want to understand the inventory in a city the same way that a company like Amazon understands the inventory in one of their warehouses. So for Postmates to be successful in a city, we need great merchants. We need people in a demographic that loves to purchase from great merchants, and arguably you have in San Francisco, you have a beautiful city that offers that. There's tens of thousands of individual merchants here. You have small startups with small retail outlets. You have a great food environment, so a lot of people here are foodies, maybe also because they can afford it. And so San Francisco was, because of that, a great test bed for us. But I think the reality is also a lot of startups are trying it here because if you can show a specific amount of traction, that at least you have a sort of proof that this model can work somewhere else.
Does it matter from a fundraising perspective, showing traction in San Francisco? Because the venture guys are here?
If it nothing matters if you don't have a good product or a great story, right? I mean, we all know the startups that are running around. They may have impressive numbers, but the story is not right. The product's unfundable. The team is not a good one. I mean, I'm talking about if all these things are aligned and you show significant progress in San Francisco, I think that is still a ticket for further funding, absolutely.
How does it change for Poshmark, where you're national from day one?
So we were and we were not. In fact, we have been, our sort of first 9 months or 12 months of our existence were actually very local. So first 6 months when we started to put the product in beta, we were doing physical get-togethers at a wine bar in Soma. And that's sort of how we built our first 100 users. Then when we put the app in the App Store, our first city we actually threw, we have this concept called a virtual shopping party, which are real-time events where women buy and sell in real time around curated themes. So one of the things we used in the first sort of 6-7 months after we put it in the App Store was to throw local posh parties. And our first local posh party was actually in LA. And as we did that, what we did was we partnered with local influencers and used that to kind of propagate the app, combined with local PR. And that was one of the core sort of foundations for the first year of growth, because when we first started back in 2012, they weren't really effective marketing engines for mobile. And so local was the foundation of our growth. And it still continues to be a very core part of our strategy. For example, tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we have an event in Seattle, and we use these events at local level to propagate the app in a hyper-local kind of a manner.
This is an important point, right? In theory, you'd look at Poshmark and say, well, it's a national marketplace, but you realize that having local and especially offline events can be a turbo boost to the pace in which you can grow.
Absolutely.
And I would say most people who grew up in the web world would say, well, I don't want to do anything offline. That's not scalable. But we are finding that some of the fastest growing services, and we see local services growing really fast. When I think about the category of marketplaces that's growing, is whether you think about a Handybook or a HomeJoy, and you think about all the categories, we invested in a company called Robo.com, and it's interesting to me how they are marrying both online and offline. I want to make sure that I have enough time for questions, but before I do that, I want to sort of give you a chance, very briefly, what is one thing that you'd like to mention about Poshmark or Postmates or Getaround that people may not know, obviously?
Our logo is a bike, but around 50% of our fleet are cars. I have a feeling I have to tell that every time when we talk about Postmates. It's probably a poor choice of a logo, but it looks good.
Okay.
What did you? Oh, the bikes.
Yes, I mean, it's the 50% of our fleet is cars, but everybody thinks it's just bikes because of the logo. I don't know if we have it somewhere, maybe not. But
How many get-around bikes? Or get-around cars?
This I actually don't know. It would be interesting to see if people do both. Yeah.
We see a lot of cross-population like
Nice.
that, yeah. I don't know, maybe that's a good one for us. We are in a very exciting space with ride-sharing. Like a few years ago when we started, there was really no kind of disruption in transportation. And since there is such an amazing service for cars, you can get with Uber or Lyft, you can get a ride on demand. And so that's point A to B. That's point A to B. And so that's for a quick trip. You want to be driven. The get-around use case is basically running errands in the city, a weekend getaway, a road trip. And so we're round-trip rentals, where you just know you always have a car to go to when you need it. So there's you have all your apps, and we can be in your transportation portfolio. And then we have lots of other things we're thinking about, but we're super focused on the on-demand aspect these days.
I think the one thing that sometimes you don't realize is that the top sellers in Poshmark are making north of $250,000 a year, and they are actually running small retail boutiques. And a corollary to that is about 10 to 20% of inventory in Poshmark is pure retail inventory, and that also moves as fast as sort of just resale and closet inventory on Poshmark.
All right, I'm going to open it up for questions. If you could just raise your hand. Gentleman up there, please.
Sorry, I'm coming to a kind of, because it's a lot of conversation around the US, so it's nice. But for me, it's always interesting to see the growth of the company when it comes to Europe, for instance. So I know I met with the CEO of Postmark. We were talking about France, I remember. Jessica, sorry, we didn't met. Bastian, you know Europe, right? So how you guys are doing, because right now economy is doing well in Europe. So how, do you have some business over there? How do you see it? If you don't, thank you.
All right, one of you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean,
we have a German, so we should go with it.
Absolutely. I would have loved to do this in Europe first. Unfortunately, I think we don't quite yet have the same infrastructure support system and capital in place to do it there. But I think for Postmates, it's definitely a goal to launch the first European city this summer. So I'm not sure which one that is. Maybe it's London. I'm not sure about Berlin. I'm being German myself. I'm not sure if the Germans would pay the premium for the product that we have in its current iteration. But I think if you think of London, very interesting. Paris, obviously, is a city that we discuss. Yeah, I mean, we want to go there fast is the answer.
For us, we love Europe, and we know there's huge opportunity in some of those same cities. Potentially next year for us, we're very focused on San Francisco and the cities we're in, and then expanding to the major cities on the East Coast of the US first.
We'll go to the person right behind.
This question is mostly for you, Bastian. What do you think about big companies like Google entering into the space that you guys are excelling at? And maybe for Manish, if Amazon enters into the same space, and Jessica, I don't know if there's any other company that enters into this. So how as startup founders you react to this, or what's your thinking around that?
I cry a lot. No, that's not true.
Does that work?
It's definitely part of a startup's life.
that only works when my mom is on the phone. But I mean, if other companies enter your market, that often validates the idea that you're working on. And then, if you're a first mover in a space, then, I believe it's yours to lose. And there's always options. There's things that you can do. And at the end of the day, the best company takes the biggest share of the market. And I think we're a bit arrogant when it comes to that at Postmates. We don't really care much about what our competition does. We believe that it's more important to concentrate on the product and on your own execution than to constantly worry about if someone else may or may not take a percentage of a market share or copy your product in a different region. I always have a feeling a company can't move then and acts a lot of fear. So I welcome everybody to the party. It's incredibly difficult. Let's have fun together.
The way we sort of look at our business is there's sort of the front end of the business, which is fashion and finding fashion and all of that. But there's actually a whole back end of the business. And both of them have different sort of competitive advantages. So if you look at Amazon, Walmart, I mean, these guys have some of the best logistics systems. They have a collection of warehouses spread across the country, massive inventory movement. But the number of warehouses is still less than 100, right? When you look at eBay, for example, it is inventory-less architecture, but they really don't provide a logistics system. Each seller chooses their own logistics system. They provide shared services. What we built is a very comprehensive logistics system that span not just 100 warehouses, but 350,000 mini warehouses across the country today, and millions of in the future. So we built a logistics system that allows us to move inventory from one place to the other across the country. We recently did a partnership with the United States Postal Service, creating the country's first fashion shipping label that at a very economical price allows anybody to ship any fashion item from one part of the country to the other in less than 2 days. So I think that inherent sort of focus on solving a problem in a highly distributed architecture is an iterative process. We've been at it. We're going to continue to iterate it. And I think particularly when you deal with physical e-commerce, logistics is a huge competitive advantage over the long term.
Definitely. I think marketplaces are one of the, unequivocally, one of the hardest businesses to execute on. So if you've been working away hard and winning at it, then you have a very good edge. I also think if you look at some of the marketplaces that succeed, their basic needs, clothing, food, transportation. And so really providing a service that people really need and enjoy is valuable. Not to mention both sides of our marketplaces are people. So we have a big strength where, a lot of the big companies that come in, they do it with their own assets or fleets or bigger box stores and things like that. Whereas we have a huge community of people who love it and use it. In the car space, we've actually seen more companies wanting to partner and get involved or do some sort of deal that way rather than do their own. So in a way for us, from a supply perspective and also just additional services, we've seen a big opportunity rather than challenges.
I'm sorry, we are out of time. We could go on. Thank you so much, Jessica, Bastian, Manish. And one little plug I want to say, a lot of our mobile app companies use Flurry. They have the best analytics and really feel like it gives them an unbelievable advantage. So I want to thank the Flurry team for having us, and thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks a bunch.
Thanks, everyone.